Hello, welcome everyone. We're just waiting a couple more minutes for people to join in, and then we'll start this meeting. I mentioned it before, but we're going to be recording this meeting so that it can just be shared in other platforms for the rest of our green members who could not be in attendance today. All right, I think we are going to start. Um, we'll just share it with people who cannot be here. Well, we welcome everybody, and we're very grateful with Dr. Melissa Bird for joining us into this Q&A for the Pacific Green Party. Um, and we just want to give you a little bit of time. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi everyone. I am Dr. Melissa Bird. I live in Corvallis, Oregon, and I am a descendant of the Shivwitz band of Paiutes from Utah. I am married. I am married to a disabled veteran. I have three kids, ages 15, 18, and 24, and I've lived in Corvallis for almost 10 years. We came here after I finished my PhD in social work for my husband to get his degree in marine biology from Oregon State University on the GI Bill. So that's a little bit about me.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And you are running for the Congressional District for primary, right?
Yes, I am running in Oregon's 4th Congressional District Democratic primary, and I've been running since July.
All right. Well, thank you for accepting this invitation for us. And so we just want to keep things moving because we know you're busy when I let you, go. So we see that you refuse corporate PAC money and APAC money. So no green candidate will accept those kinds of donations. Have you ever considered running as a green instead of a Democrat?
No, I've actually been a Democrat since I was registered to vote at the age of 18. And there's a couple of reasons for that. One of them is our primary system in Oregon. So the reason I decided to run in the Democratic primary is because I believe that it's really paramount for us to remove Val Hoyle from office. Um, and with our closed primary system, I think there's a huge opportunity to engage with Democratic voters, particularly in the rural areas who have been disenfranchised by the party. And so I decided to run as a Democrat because I think that it's critical for Democratic voices to have a vote. And what we have really begun to understand as we've been working throughout the district, particularly in the rural areas of the district. I grew up in a small rural town, and so the rural areas here are very important to me. And Corvallis is not that much of a, I mean, we're pretty close to being rural. We're not some huge mecca. And a lot of what I was hearing from voters, particularly Democratic voters, is that they feel disenfranchised and left out of the system. And so running as a Democrat was something that was really important to me because of how our primary system works here in Oregon.
All right. And what inspired you to run well, you mentioned Val Hoyle. Is there anything else that pushed you to wanting to be running for congressional district for?
Yeah, so I've always wanted to run for public office. And in my work as the lobbyist for Planned Parenthood of Utah, I'd been asked several times to run for office throughout my career, but the timing was never right for me. And so I decided to run for a couple of reasons. One is that as we are seeing this rise in fascist authoritarianism in the country, I felt like it was really important for the voice of, working class folks like me to push back against the system. And as a working mom and someone who's raising children in this world, it just felt incumbent on me to run for office. I think it's really important for us to have people in Congress who are actually being directly impacted by the policies that are being passed at the congressional level. And with my background as a community activist and a social worker who also used to teach social justice advocacy and policy, I feel like it's really critically important for someone to be in Congress to be able to advocate for the things that I think are really important for our families and our communities to be able to not just survive, but also to thrive. And so this moment in my life, it just it just happened. I got asked and I said, okay.
All right, all right. Awesome. Thanks for sharing. Well, we are green people and we're committed kind of like to the Green Party. And so what do you think would you say is the biggest policy difference between you and the Green Party? Like what you're running on in the Green Parties. I don't know if you're very familiar with
Yeah, I'm
the
really familiar with
platform.
the Green Party. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I um I think that I don't think there's any major differences when it comes to policy structures there's no major huge difference between me and the Green Party. I will say one thing that strikes me that I've actually felt very strongly about for quite a long time is that I don't think the Green Party's position on Roe versus Wade goes far enough. Roe versus Wade was a policy decision that was a privacy decision. It actually isn't an abortion decision. And so I think that if the Green Party wants to be stronger, particularly in its position on Roe versus Wade, that um, it needs to take a reproductive justice framework, which actually encompasses a lot more than Roe ever did. Roe versus Wade focuses more on medical rights rather than bodily autonomy. And it doesn't go far enough to protect everybody's interest in whether or not they don't just obtain an abortion, but they also have the ability to engage in reproductive justice to make their own decisions about when and where to have children. And so from a policy perspective, I don't want to just enshrine Roe in some sort of federal policy that keeps us stuck there. I think we need to go way beyond Roe versus Wade. Um, I I don't think there's very other many other positions where we differ. I do think it's really important for all of us, no matter what our party affiliation is, uh, when we think about sovereign rights of Indigenous people and how it intersects with the environment. I think that one of the things that I think is really important is in that tribal sovereignty to also look at the language that we are using around the planet. Um, like the planet doesn't need saving. The planet needs nurturing and reciprocity and sustainable and regenerative answers to what we are doing when it comes to climate change. And so I have become much more aware of the language that I use around the earth and what we are talking about when we're talking about climate change in particular, because of my native background and who I am as a human being.
All right, awesome. Awesome. Thank you.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, I mean, as far as I know, the Green Party platform does go way beyond Roe versus Wade. It encompasses as well as reproductive rights for
Yeah, it just isn't reflected on any of the websites or any of the things that I
Mhm.
read. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, there's always room to grow for sure. I
that's
mean,
right.
it doesn't seem like we disagree in many of the things. I feel like we are pretty much in agreement with a
Hmm.
lot of the stuff that, what you're running for, what we stand for.
Hmm.
And awesome. So our next question is, are you making any demands as far as your campaign?
So there are several policies that we are focused on as a campaign. Uh, and one of the ways that we have built our issues page in particular is based on some of the feedback that we're getting from voters about what they need and what their needs are. So one of our major focuses is on, of course, universal health care. That is a critical need in our communities for all of us, not just people in CD4. And as someone who actually lobbied for the ACA and worked on the ACA in my capacity when I was working at Planned Parenthood, obviously we know that the ACA did not go nearly as far as it needed to. And so universal health care is something that's really critically important to me and to my family, quite frankly. It's another reason that I'm running is because my family knows what it's like to be on food stamps and we know what it's like to be on Medicaid, and we need people who are working within the governmental structure who understand what those things actually look like. One of the biggest things that we've focused on as far as policies go is thinking about how all of these structures that we have in place, particularly for the social safety net, are burdensome because of the way the federal government hasn't updated the policies for things like food stamps and Medicaid. We haven't increased the federal poverty level since 1978 for inflation and cost of living. And so all of the decisions that we're making when it comes to disability, housing, food, and economic growth has to do with the fact that we have not raised the federal poverty level in decades. And so the structures that we're already operating under aren't working for people because they are keeping people in these cycles of poverty because we haven't updated our systems to 2026 standards for cost of living and inflation. And so foundationally, all of the things that I believe in, like housing as a human right, childcare for all, free college, all of those things that are actually creating burdens for people are things that we're focusing on when it comes to the FPL and also an actual livable minimum wage. Raising the minimum wage to adjust for inflation and cost of living is also critically important to the health and well-being of our communities and our families. And so those things are critically important to me. Uh, we're very focused on um, agriculture and timber, um, as helping working with tribes to make sure that our timber industry is actually regenerative and sustainable and not and adamantly opposing clear cutting or any of the things that have to do with decimating our forests. Thinking about how we are protecting labor in the workforce from AI and also preventing an expansion of data centers in Congressional District 4. Um, and also thinking about how we are addressing climate change in the district because of how it is impacting our fisheries are a great example. Our fishing industry um, is really being impacted not just by overfishing, but also by climate change. And how are we working to help make sure that people can survive and thrive on the coast? And I think the last one is just really one of the things that has consistently bothered me about our incumbent is her absolute refusal to call Palestine a genocide. And as someone whose direct family line are victims of genocide, my great great grandmother was murdered by Mormon pioneers. My great grandmother was sold into slavery for a polygamous family. And so, as someone who has felt that very deeply ancestrally for my entire lifetime, I think it's really critical that we stop sending arms to Israel and we start calling Palestine what it really everything that's going on in the Middle East right now is beyond genocidal. And so, I think we need leaders in office who are willing to call that out.
Awesome. Awesome. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah. Um, you mentioned that you used to work for Planned Parenthood, right, in Utah. And so I know, you mentioned it, that it's a big part of like what motivated you to, run for office and stuff like that. And so Planned Parenthood did endorse Val Hoyle. Are there any thoughts that you have about that?
Oh, I have thoughts.
I bet
Um,
you do.
yeah, I do. I have a lot of them. Um, One of the things that I think has been the most fascinating process of running for Congress in particular, particularly as someone who knows very intimately or who knew very intimately the policies of several nonprofit organizations that are endorsing organizations, is the lack of willingness to meet with people who are primarying incumbent Democrats in particular. And so Planned Parenthood never met with me. They never asked me about my race. And they chose not to remain neutral, which is a distinct departure from the policies of the Planned Parenthood of yesteryear when I was there. And what this brings up for me, and I think it's really important for anyone who's listening to this or who is looking at um, just this political system in general, which you all know, you're members of the Green Party, you understand like what it means to be a third party in a system that is so entrenched in binary either or thinking, is that endorsements that are based on keeping this system safe um, are not going to help any of us. Like part of the reason I'm running is because I believe that we need people in the Democratic Party who are willing to stand up and fight and be leaders in our own right, uh, while we are doing everything we can to advocate for our families and the people in our communities. And so I was really frustrated to find out she'd been endorsed by Planned Parenthood and quite frankly, really disappointed. But I think if we look at how this system is really working to protect itself, particularly since Citizens United and with all of the corporate money in Congress and in other elected um, positions, that I mean, it's a bummer, but also it doesn't surprise me because this mentality that we have to keep seats safe is why we are facing an authoritarian dictatorship in this country, because they have figured out that there's no playing safe anymore. Um, and I think this is why we need open primaries, because the more we have open primaries, the more other voices get to be heard within that system. And I mean, I grew up in a state where the Democratic primary was always open and the Republican primary was closed. And because the party understood what it meant to have more than one voice at the table. And so I think that it really goes back to this idea that even here in Oregon, this place that considers itself this liberal, space, is actually a place where our parties are very much closed off to most of the voters, since most of the voters, 43% of the voters, identify as non-affiliated voters, and therefore they don't have the power to vote and have their voices heard in our closed primary system. So I
No,
was
yeah.
bummed. I guess I'll round it out by saying I was bummed, but not surprised.
Well, I think we both can agree that these nonprofit organizations, they work to keep the power structures in place, right? I mean, it's hard, and I mean, I bet you understand as well as we do that it's hard competing against them, the big names in the Democratic or Republican Party, and all we could do is just keep trying at it and work together in order to achieve the benefit of everyone and not just of the few.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, for sure. But yeah, thank you for sharing that. I mean, yeah, it's a bummer to hear, but just have to keep pushing along, huh?
yeah.
And as you know, Justin Phillip, he's also running for Congressional District number 4, and he's the co-chair of the Green Party. So he is not here with us, but he's also part of the Green Party. Oh, I see. Sorry. Mike, you
That's
have
my
you
question.
have any questions?
You're muted. Mike, I can't
Mike,
hear.
I think you're muted.
Sorry, I get to start all over again. Anyway, I just wanted to comment about open primaries. In California, they have like a top three primary now, and for a third party candidate to get on the ballot, it means that in the general election, they have to win at least the third place in the primary, and that's it's essentially stopped Green Party candidates from appearing on the November ballot. And so it's a concern we have. I mean, there are different ways of doing an open primary, but but I'm afraid that, like you could have an open primary, but still allow parties to nominate to be on the ballot, whether they participated in the open primary or not. I mean, that would be legitimate. But I'm just saying that, the open primaries have been used to keep Greens off the ballot. And so that's a concern that we have. I, yeah, Nora was just starting to talk about Justin Phillip, who will probably has announced that he's a candidate, the Green
Yep.
Party candidate, and we our nominating convention will be after the I think legally it has to be after the Democratic and Republican primaries. So he's not officially a candidate yet, but he's announced his intention to be a candidate, and I'm and he's there's no reason that he won't get the nomination. However, I was, I was thinking of, we might think that you're a better candidate, but I'm not going to change parties and vote in the Democratic primary,
No,
and I'm certainly not going to encourage any Greens to do that.
no.
However, there, in Oregon has this sore loser law that says that we cannot nominate someone who has run in the Democratic primary or Republican primary, and I think that that's legally challengeable. I mean, it's definitely it constricts the rights of our party. We have the right to co-nominate you if as a Democrat if you're the winner of the primary, but we don't have the ability to nominate you if you're the loser. And it's it's an unfair system. And I'm just I'm not. I guess this is all a theoretical question because I expect Justin is going to run and he will be our candidate. But would you be willing, if if the situation arose, would you be willing to be the test case to challenge this sore loser law?
Oh,
Maybe.
what an interesting question.
Yeah, and you don't have to have an answer, but I'd like you to think. Well, I'd like to hear your thoughts on it because I would really like to get a test case of that sore loser law because we certainly see good candidates running in the Democratic primary, and I I don't really have hopes for you winning. I mean, I can hope, but I don't see much chance of it. Val Hoyle is solid. She has the backing of the party and the this fear of Republicans winning would prevent them from doing anything unusual in Democratic voters. So anyway, well, just do you have any thoughts about that?
I mean, I'll have to think about it. I've never even heard of it before, so I'll totally look into it because I didn't know it existed in the first place. And I am going to respectfully disagree with you that I don't have a shot of beating Val Hoyle because I will tell you right now, that's
Okay,
not what
well,
I'm
you have
hearing
to
on the
believe that.
doors. That's not what I'm hearing on the doors. So,
Yeah. I live in Corvallis also, by the way, so I should have seen you before now, but I haven't. And I have heard from people who attended your campaign events in Corvallis, and were very impressed. So,
thank you.
so I guess that's all the comments I have for now.
I'll let you know after May 19th.
Yeah, thanks.
Hmm.
Yeah, thank you, Mike, for your questions for sure. Um, yeah, well, do you have we don't want to take much of your time. It's almost 5:30. So we really appreciate you meeting with us. We really appreciate you sharing a little bit about you and your campaign and what you stand for and what you fight for. It's a good view, and I feel like we agree on a lot of the stuff. And so just I feel like we need a little bit of solidarity coming if we're trying to defeat, a bigger system for sure. We invited Val to come and meet with us too and have like the Q&A, but we didn't hear back from her. So we really appreciate you taking the invitation and joining us. Is there anything else you would like to say, share to wrap things up?
Yeah, well, I just wanted to say thank you for giving me the opportunity to come and share with all of you. I have said throughout this campaign that I will talk to anybody anytime. So, and I've taken almost every single person up on that offer. And I think the Green Party is amazing, and I think you all are doing awesome work. And um, I'm really grateful for the opportunity and the time for you all to get to ask me these questions and get to know me a little bit better. Um, so yeah, I guess for people who are curious about me, I encourage people to go to my website. And also, if people are curious and have other questions for me, like people who couldn't be here, we do a live every Wednesday on Zoom at 7 p.m. And that's on our events calendar. So we have a lot of really incredible events coming up throughout the district. Um, and so if there are people who live outside the Corvallis and Eugene area who are part of the Green Party and want to ask questions or get their questions answered, people email us all the time, or call. I talk to a lot of people on the phone. And so I'm really an open book. And so if people have any questions about me at all, I'm happy to answer any of them.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And Mike, I saw that you were raising your hand. Do you have any more questions?
Yeah, I guess I thought of something. It's nice of you to talk with us in the Green Party, and we are you know, the largest third party in, I believe, in Oregon. I don't think Libertarian, or no, we're not. The Independent Party is is much bigger, but we have statewide organizations, so maybe we're better. But anyway, I wonder, have you talked to other parties? I think the Working Family Party and the Independent Party and the Progressive Party are all relatively progressive, and they might be interested in your candidacy, even if they, they their voters are not likely to vote in the Democratic primary. But have
Yeah,
you
so
talked with them?
I'm endorsed by the Working Families Party of Oregon, Progressive Democrats of America, both in Oregon and nationally.
Mhm.
And I've reached out to the Independent Party, but I haven't heard back from them. So, but yeah, we've talked to a lot of different folks throughout the state, different parties, and I've been endorsed by a couple of them. So it's pretty
Yeah.
rad.
Yeah, I just comment that we would well, I assume the Green Party would not give you an endorsement in the primary because I think it's our policy that we don't interfere in the Democratic primary, and we hope that they don't interfere in our nominating process either.
Well, I would
So
have never been so audacious as to ask, Mike.
yeah, well, since you mentioned that the Working Families Party had endorsed you, so that's what made me think of that. But but that's just there might be other people in the party who disagree, but and we have done co-nominations, or once we've co-nominated a Democrat, and it was, I don't know if you remember the name Mike Neerman. He was the state legislator in, I'm not sure, the district just north of Corvallis, and he was he was rather famous for, during one of these timber unity rallies where the people were locked out while the legislature was in session. He opened a back door, and let rioters come inside the state capitol, and state police had to fight them off. And he was expelled from the legislature. But when he was running, we co-nominated the Democrat who was running against him, and didn't run our own candidate in that district. But so. Yeah, but it's if you get the nomination, well, I guess we wouldn't co-nominate you because we've got our own candidate.
Because you have your own candidate.
But
Yeah,
thanks for listening.
sure, you bet. And thanks for having me. And again, if anybody have any questions, they can just go to melissabirdforcongress.com, and you can follow along on all my social media as well.
Perfect. I mean, we will make sure that we share this recording with our membership. And thank you so much again. Best
Yeah,
of luck.
thank you. Thanks for the invitation. It was nice chatting with you all. I hope you have a great night.
All right. Thank you. You as well.
Bye bye.
Bye.
I want to thank